Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tearing into some source material that is, let's just say it's as complex as it is deeply unsettling.
Oh, absolutely.
We have three distinct narratives, all presented as factual accounts, and they're woven together by these threads of, well, extreme isolation, ritual, and curses that seem to just rewrite reality.
And that's our mission today, isn't it? To move beyond just the visceral shock of it all. We're going to be dissecting these accounts to really trace the life cycle of a curse.
The life cycle.
Yeah, we need to see how human choices, things like neglect or cruelty, how they can open a door to some kind of external supernatural agency, and then, crucially, how that agency enforces a new, terrifying reality on whoever survives.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're starting with the longest account, maybe the most cinematic one. It's about a figure known only as the Frogger.
And you might think of a squatter, but the source makes it really clear. This is a professional.
Right, this isn't about desperation. It's an obsession. And it's one born from this deeply isolated, traumatic childhood spent in orphanages, foster homes, just watching and listening.
The motivation shift is the absolute key here. He learned to survive by being invisible, but then he transformed that skill into this perverse form of self-actualization.
He calls it becoming a ghost in pristine houses.
Exactly. He's driven by the need for proof that I existed. His biggest fear wasn't getting caught. It was proving he could vanish completely.
And he wasn't alone in this. I mean, the source details a whole online subculture around it.
A very dangerous game.
Yeah, with contests like longest stay undetected, most dangerous infiltration. Our narrator was a legend in that scene. He was posting maps, audio files, tips. He was validated by the risk.
Which is exactly why his final target was so extreme. He picks this impossibly isolated Utah ranch.
Described as a lush square of impossible color in the middle of these dry lands.
So remote his own community, these experts in infiltration, they called it suicide. It was the ultimate test for him.
And this is where the story shifts. It stops being about, criminal activity and becomes true horror. The second he steps onto the property, he crosses a literal boundary.
A sharp border made of chalk or salt or ash buried just under the dirt.
And the source is so precise here. The air temperature immediately drops 10 degrees. The smell changes completely, dampness mixed with something ancient and faintly sweet.
That boundary wasn't just a property line. It was the physical marker of a secret world. The fact that the environment itself changes, that signals a hidden, controlling reality, was already in effect.
The house reflected it too. Old, dark timber, polished floors, but zero modernization.
And the artwork.
The artwork was shocking. It showed demons and angels fighting, horned men, symbols that the Frogger described as some weird denomination of Christianity.
So unsettling.
After finding his hiding spot, a false panel in a storage closet, he overhears the first really chilling conversation.
Ah, yes.
The parents, they're talking about needing fresh meat soon
Yeah.
and needing something stronger this time.
Yeah. And he tries to rationalize it, right? He's thinking, okay, livestock, maybe deer.
He's desperately clinging to a normal explanation, but that's failing fast.
And he has to. That normalization is crucial for his survival at this point. If he'd immediately accepted the supernatural, he would have panicked, he would have been found. He needed a human explanation.
Even for the basement, he finds.
Especially for the basement. A small wooden hatch in the kitchen floor. The descent is shoulder-scraping. The air is thick with iron and soil.
And his flashlight just reveals this nightmare scene. Rough stone walls, rusted chains, a stained floor, animal bones.
And those glass jars of dark liquid. But he still tries to frame it, to call it a butchering room.
2 mornings later, the family leaves. But the mother tells one of the kids to only take the deep one because the others are too thin, and then she says, the land won't respond.
The land won't respond. That's a critical detail.
The Frogger, now just trapped by his own obsession, goes into the basement, and the ritual begins.
The participants are the parents and 2 other figures, completely shrouded in these seamless black robes. Symbols are embroidered on them in a sickly off-white thread.
And the victim, a heavily pregnant, unconscious woman on a scarred butcher slab.
The sheer specificity of it all is it's telling. The entity, or the land, it clearly demands a certain quality, a certain intention.
The ritual itself is this fusion of ancient horror and, like you said, precise geometry. One of the robed men uses blood from a jar to trace a perfect circle, a pentagram, on the floor.
And then the sacrifice. The father uses a long curved dagger plunges it into the woman's chest, but the real grotesquerie comes right after.
Yeah, the transformation is horrifying because it merges the human and the symbolic so brutally.
Yeah.
The mother comes back with a freshly severed goat's head.
Which is then sawed onto the human neck. This isn't just murder, it's a specific, almost alchemical act. They're creating a vessel.
And the ritual is sealed with salt and these little metal tokens, coins, rings, a broken key placed around the pentagram.
And the creature rises, but its immediate reaction is just rage.
It's angry. It demands to know why it was summoned, complaining that they've wasted blood, that the crops have dulled.
Which suggests the creature is tied to the fertility of the land. It needs specific, potent offerings to work.
It's so angry, it orders the family out for 24 hours to cleanse every inch, and this is the scary part for him, every hiding place.
And that's the moment his invisibility fails completely. The creature senses him immediately. It whispers, "I smelled you as soon as I came."
It offers him this terrifying deal. Break a single line of salt, shake hands, and it'll help him escape what it's about to do to the family.
And he takes the deal.
He does. The ceiling cracks. The creature just tackles the father. But as the Frogger runs, he smacks right into that invisible wall at the property line.
The very same boundary.
Exactly. The creature stops him, and it demands its wish. You must raise my kin.
Oh, no.
And then it gives birth, a small, dark-haired, winged, gray-skinned entity that looks up at him and speaks one word. Dad.
The cost of his survival was accepting a new, inescapable ritual. His whole life is now part of this curse.
And his attempts to fight it are useless. A knife stops like it's hitting cured leather. A gun misfires when he aims it at the creature.
But fires when he aims it at his own head.
Right. And eventually the creature morphs to look fully human, but he realizes the entire ranch, the whole property, is actually the design of a vast, incomprehensible symbol. His life is trapped inside it.
A truly staggering conclusion.
Okay, so let's transition from the trauma of witnessing a ritual to the trauma of inheriting one. The next source, the confessor, it's heavily implied this is the Frogger decades later looking for absolution.
What's fascinating here is how the source material details the inheritance of that darkness. It connects it right back to his childhood, to neglect and isolation.
The mother's dark practice, which we now realize was probably a precursor to the big ritual he witnessed.
Right. She'd send him out to find someone cold, someone who's hungry, the desperate, the forgotten.
And these people just vanish after being fed. And what's left behind is real meat. But the psychological defense she taught him is horrifyingly profound.
Eating under a white linen napkin.
With the whispered prayer, we hide our faces so God doesn't have to watch us eat.
And she justifies it, doesn't she? She tells him the desperate offer themselves in their weakness, and that receiving this gift made us holy. It's an attempt to cloak a cannibalistic ritual in righteousness.
That veil, that napkin, it's their attempt to create some moral distance.
But the damage is already done. The boy leaves home at 15. He tries every diet you can imagine. Vegan, carnivore, trying to fix the guilt. But he realizes the problem isn't the guilt, it's the absence of the ritual.
He misses the want, the weird sense of hunger that only that meal could quench.
It's not just a memory. The source suggests the ritual created a biological imperative in him, a dependency.
Like an addiction.
But the substance is the dark practice itself. He misses that primal feeling. And the confessor's climax is just chilling. He's planning his first independent murder, and the only thought in his head is, what will he taste like?
The human failure, that maternal neglect, it turned into an inescapable self-sustaining evil.
And that idea of self-sustaining evil leads us perfectly to the next story, the story of Mr. Grin.
Right, so if trauma can be inherited, what happens when it's externalized as an entity that preys purely on failure and catastrophe?
Mr. Grin is the antithesis of the goat-headed creature. He doesn't want sacrifice for land. He appears only at moments of extreme catastrophe, death, job loss, betrayal. He's like the physical manifestation of failure.
And the description is just ghastly. Tall, bent spine, waxy, pale skin, arms hanging past his waist, and that grin.
Like he'd been smiling for years and his face had just given up trying to do anything else.
The mechanism of his curse is different too. Mr. Grin doesn't commit the violence himself. He specializes in forcing self-destruction.
And we see this through the therapist's account. His professional objectivity just collapses. He breaks protocol. He stays the night with his patient who's terrified of this thing.
And that failure is the invitation. It lets him experience the paralyzing physical presence of Mr. Grin. The cold, the pressure, the locked muscles.
And the creature then guides the patient's own hand, holding the knife, to slice his wrist. It's described as a smooth, almost tender act of forced suicide.
That word tender is so disturbing. It suggests a kind of perverse release.
The therapist, of course, flees in panic. He loses his license, his professional standing, which immediately replicates the catastrophe his patient was going through.
Creating this inevitable cyclical trap.
Exactly. After the patient's death, Mr. Grin begins stalking the therapist. And the therapist, now paralyzed by his new reality, seeks help from a new therapist, and he replicates the exact scenario. He says, he's going to appear tonight, and I don't want to be alone.
So the victim becomes the new patient, trapping the next therapist in the cycle.
It's a terrifying chain reaction based on psychological collapse.
We need to pivot to our final source now, which deals with revenge as an ultimate act of sacrifice. The vengeance of Danny Trejo.
This one begins so abruptly. The brutal deaths of three men, Greg, Lex, and Jamie, all linked by police dropping a single name from high school, Danny.
The inciting incident here is just pure cruelty.
The history confirms it. The bullying in high school that culminated in them locking Danny Trejo in a locker and leaving him overnight, the isolation, that feeling of being abandoned and forgotten, that's the gateway.
Days later, Danny disappears, and then his parents are found dead. Massive internal trauma, cause undetermined. The narrator connects the dots years later. The revenge started immediately.
And the narrator is finally rescued by this worn older man who reveals he is the long-lost Danny Trejo.
He explains that after the locker incident, he prayed. He prayed to anything, and something answered.
And that something methodically hunted down everyone he had ever cursed. A deliberate, years-long invocation of supernatural vengeance, all rooted in profound human pain.
But what sets this story apart is that Danny chose to fight back. He didn't just accept the curse, he engineered a solution.
He realized the creature described with gray skin, sores, bone-tipped fingers was vulnerable. He spent years preparing specific ammunition.
The preparation itself is highly ritualized, isn't it? It connects back to the other stories.
Absolutely. The bullets were soaked in a mix of silver powder, industrial salts, lye iron fillings, and a few other things. The creature is finally destroyed by the third shot. It's that meticulous, decade-long preparation that succeeds, where the Frogger's desperate attempts just failed.
But the revenge carries this final, awful cost. Danny demands the narrator shoot him in the side. Nothing vital enough to look real, to provide a clean story for the police.
The police need a believable scapegoat to explain 3 brutal deaths.
So Danny takes the blame, he dies in custody from the wound, and the narrator is cleared. But he's left with this double guilt.
The initial cruelty that created the monster and the final bullet that killed the man who saved him.
So if we pull all 3 of these accounts together, what's the pattern?
The pattern is clear. Individuals, through deep isolation like the Frogger and Danny, or inherited cruelty like the Confessor, they open a door to an external supernatural agency. And that entity then mandates a new, dark logic for their lives. A ritualized existence, a cannibalistic hunger, or a cycle of self-destruction.
So what does this all mean for you listening? We see how the consequences of deep human failure, neglect, bullying, fear, they don't just disappear. They manifest as these terrifying, self-sustaining realities that demand absolute commitment. The price of survival in every one of these sources is the forced acceptance of a new, horrifying ritual designed by the very darkness you invited in.
And think about this. The Frogger's invisible boundary, the Confessor's mother's linen veil, the terrifying, tender guidance of Mr. Grin, they all serve the exact same purpose. A desperate, ritualized attempt to impose control on a reality that has become unbearably chaotic. So the final question is, are these dark forces just reflecting the evil we invite when we abandon or torture the isolated? Or are they waiting just beyond the edges of the normal world for a broken person to finally call their name?